Greetings, and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit around and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis, pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JG McQuarrie, and I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever it is with you out there in Radio Land.
Good, excellent. Now, after last week's episode, we said that we shouldn't start by asking, how are you? Because we've already been talking for a while, and you and I already know the answer to that question. So, I'm not going to ask you how you are. I'm hoping it hasn't substantially changed in the length of time it has taken to record this introduction.
I can confirm there has been no significant alteration in my status in the intervening time. How about yours?
My status is firm, and I am as good as ever I was.
Okay, it sounds like we're venturing into Star Trek dialogue now, doesn't it?
It is getting a bit worrying. All right, let's not do that and instead talk about today's song, which is Yellow Submarine.
Maybe the Star Trek link is slightly appropriate.
Hey,
I don't
well,
know.
all
There you
right,
go.
well, go.
Okay. Hi everyone. This is the song that everybody knows, and I suspect that not everybody's always listened to the end of. It's We're entering into brand new Ringo territory. He's actually getting half decent songs to sing now. And isn't that wonderful? And don't forget, it persists for a whole 2 albums.
Well, that's pretty good. I mean, I don't think we can. I don't think we can complain about the number of good Ringo songs in an album. Yeah. Here we are. This Yellow Submarine. What do you want to say, man? I mean, it's there and it's a thing, and yeah, everyone knows it, and it's amazing
Yeah,
how, like there are so many Beatles songs where you go, oh, everybody knows, like, oh, Yesterday, or everybody knows what, like. Everybody knows Yellow Submarine. It is utterly inescapable, and
and yeah, it's quite interesting that it was only the 2 or 3 years ago that this we finally got to hear this John Lennon mournful demo of what is effectively the verse that I didn't know that existed before. You sort of see some hints of people suggesting that Lennon had written a verse and McCartney kind of finished everything off and had the big concept for Yellow Submarine. But it is interesting that this is genuinely one of those songs where Lennon had an idea for one part, McCartney had an idea for the other part. They put it together, wham, there you go, precursor to Day in the Life. Have I just compared Yellow Submarine to Day in the Life? I appear to have done so. Deal with it, folks.
Yes, well, that's just the sort of podcast this is. Those are the kind of comparisons that you just don't get anywhere else. I love that demo. I love that Lennon demo. It's such a lovely little thing. I had no idea it existed pretty much until the moment it was released. And, obviously you hear about rumors and there's a whole bunch of stuff. But given that we'd had Anthology and given that we'd had bootlegs and given that we'd had blah, 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 all the rest of it that comes out, like this never really seemed to crop up, and then suddenly there it was, and it's such a lovely thing, and it's so rare even with Anthology, but it's so rare that you get that kind of insight into how a song is constructed and how it's changed during the course of its writing and recording, because that version, which is really lovely, but it doesn't much resemble, beyond the superficiality of the melody, it doesn't much resemble what the song ends up being. Like that sort of melancholic kind of edge to it entirely disappears, and in a way, I was going to say in a way that's surprising, because that kind of slightly mournful melancholia is something which is very much within Ringo's wheelhouse. But it's lovely to not have him be doing that anymore. We've got enough of that. It's fine, and I'm so glad we've moved away from the kind of doleful country and western nonsense. So it's lovely to have this. But that slightly, melancholy edge to the demo isn't something that would be out of place for Ringo to do, even as it's not how the song has ended up.
But isn't it nice that, and I think only in the band, only Paul would have been able to do this, to take that lyric, that first line, "In the town where I was born." Then, admittedly, Lennon, I think, then goes, "Was it no one cared?" Something like
Yeah,
that.
no one
Anyway,
cares. No one
uh,
cares. Yeah.
yeah, and he takes that first line, "In the town where I was born," and he then takes it in a completely different direction that is just full of joy and nonsense and wonder. Um, And I don't think Lennon could have done that. Probably once he'd written that verse in that way, he probably wouldn't have been able to take it away from being that song, that mournful song that maybe he'd originally intended. I part of me wonders if this could have been something that had been. Just imagine that this was a demo that he'd put together that he'd never played to the rest of the band. And run with the scenario here, and
Hmm.
that some years later, someone came across it, maybe Yoko, for example, and Yoko put it in an envelope and sent it off to Paul and said, "Do you want to do something with it?" You just imagine, he'd have, I wonder what he would have come up with at the time, because it would have been nothing like this,
No.
obviously.
And it would have been better than Free as a Bird.
Well, yeah. To to quote the great man himself, couldn't get much worse.
Well, there we go. Spoiler for the third last episode of this
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah. So we like this. Oh God, we're not going to talk about those, are we?
Oh yeah, we have to. Come on, if
Oh
we're going to do
no.
if we're going to do them complete, we have to do those three as well.
Okay, but as long as we record those episodes before we record Let It Be and Abbey Road, because I really don't think I could put up with having those piddly little bits left to do at the very end. No, 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 no. Anyway,
That's fine. Well,
um,
I'm also not going to guarantee my sobriety for them. Let's say it that way as well. So
right,
that
fair
that's
enough.
fine.
So, what's your favourite bit of Yellow Submarine?
All of it. It's such a joyful song. I love Yellow Submarine. It's just lovely. It makes me happy and it makes me feel very warm inside, and it's just an absolute joy. It's incredibly silly. And I love silly. People use silly as a pejorative, and I don't really think it is. I think I love things when things are silly, and it's also one of the nice things that I think, in a way, the song undercuts a lot of the kind of um, seriousness. Like, this is such a, people talk about this album as a piece of art. It's a piece of, a great 20th century piece of art. And I think it is. And people take it phenomenally seriously. And, who are we to judge them, given what we're currently in the process of doing? But it's so lovely to have something so utterly silly in the middle of all that seriousness and all that kind of weighty emotional development. We've just had Here, There, and Everywhere, which is this, poignant and heartfelt love song. And we're going to have the lonely, lost melancholia of For No One. We're going to have the psychedelic freakouts of She Said, She Said, and Tomorrow Never Knows. We're going to have the kind of Motown influence, like Got to Get all this serious stuff. And then you've just got four people dicking about and having a great time. And, well, not four people, actually, probably about a dozen. But, I just love it. I absolutely adore this song. I find it charming and wonderful, and I just love how silly it is. So, in answer to your question, yeah, everything. I love everything about this song.
Right, hastily while you were saying that, crossed out any references to anything vaguely serious. So, let's not.
No,
Let's
you can be
not.
serious. Don't let my triviality and superficiality drag you down to my level, for God's sake.
Well, I mean, we could potentially talk about the fact that we've just gone from a song that is supposedly inspired to God only knows to a song that is supposedly inspired by Bob Dylan's Rainy Day Woman. And so, there's that aspect to it. There's that rhythm bit that does have that kind of bouncy, boisterous nature to it. So we could go that route if you want to, or we could talk about the fact that this lyric, I'm gonna quote a bit here.
Mm.
As we live a life of ease. Every one of us has all we need. I'm not going to do that bit. Sky of blue and sea of green in our yellow submarine. That, my friend, is 10 times better than anything in Imagine.
Well, I'm certainly not going to argue with that in any way, shape, or form. No, absolutely. That's the thing is this looks like such a simple lyric, but it is so well constructed. I know there's lots to talk about, like Donovan contributed a few lines. Obviously, Lennon's chipped in there, and then sort of McCartney's done his bit and then pulled everything together. And it is a really well written lyric. That verse that you've just quoted is just perfect. That's just such a perfect, lovely way into this song. And I think it's like that all the way through. Even that, in the town where I was born lived a man who sailed to sea, and he told us of his land. Yeah, it's great. It's just such a
Yeah.
well constructed lyric. It's simple, but that is not in any way, a way of saying easy or bad. It's not. It's a simple lyric, but it's incredibly effective and incredibly well constructed. It's just there's something rather glorious about it. I love it.
So is this the first Beatles song to have two perspectives in? Because we have someone saying that in the town where I was born there was this guy, and now I'm going to switch and speak in the voice of the guy, and he's going to tell a story. Effectively, apart from the first verse, everything else in the lyric is in quotation marks.
Wow. So are you saying that this is a song within a song?
I'm saying this is as complex as Frankenstein.
Okay, that's fine. I'm prepared to go along with that. Yeah, yeah, and probably as influential.
The only thing that's missing is that we don't get the tying it up at the end. In fact, actually, that is a little bit of a bugbear of mine about this. Is that
But
it
nobody gets
introduces.
burned at the stake.
There's no burning of the stake in Frankenstein. What are you talking about, man?
I know, I know.
We don't get Wharton coming back in at the end to talk about what happened to this guy. But we get Wharton at the start, but not anyway. So it's not like it's bookended with it. We get in the town where I was born, there was this guy, and this is what he told us. And the guy tells us this is a fabulous place to live, absolutely amazing. But then what I want at the end of the song is to find out what the hell is that bloke now doing in the town where I was born? Why didn't he stay in the land of submarines if it's so damn great, for goodness sake? Couldn't have been that good, or he'd still be there. In which case we wouldn't have the song because he wouldn't have told us about it. My God, my head's just exploded in a puff of logic.
Good. Well, yeah. Did you try and persuade somebody that black was white and get killed in the nearest zebra crossing?
Yeah. But it does it kind of it fizzles out. We live this wonderful life, and isn't that fantastic? But what he told us of his life in the land of submarines. Man alive, I want to know more. Tell me more. Don't leave it until a very substandard piece of animation a couple of years later. I
Hey,
want to know
no, no,
more.
hey, no, no, hey, no.
Hey now, hey now. You're doing an old Gallagher lyric now.
Oh,
Hey
I'm
now, hey
definitely
now.
not. Yeah, Melchard at the best. Anyway,
But it
it's
is, but it isn't. It's an interesting idea. That whole notion of, um, I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story, but then I'm going to tell you the story that somebody else told me, is a really sophisticated device.
yeah.
And I'm tongue in cheek making a comparison to Mary Shelley, but it is a known and well used literary device. I could just as easily have been Nellie Dean in Wuthering Heights, for goodness sake.
Oh yeah, or
There's
Caucasian chalk circle. Do a bit of Brecht in there if you want to as well. I mean, yeah, absolutely. But
no, because
it's
I'm not a pretentious wanker. But
oh,
I'll leave you.
thanks.
I'll leave that to you.
Okay, well, listen, you started us this line. I refuse to be solely criticised for it. But yeah, it is. You're obviously correct.
So, but the other thing that I think is way more sophisticated than I think people would realize is the fact that we get a verse that is cut off for effect. So, and our friends are all aboard. Many more of them live next door, and the band begins to play. Cue the band playing. Then, rather than having the extra line, or that's going to fill in and we're going to go into the chorus. What a lovely idea. And I think we're getting a precursor here to our Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with, the brass
Yeah, yeah.
in that as another band that's playing. I think there are some lovely, lovely echoes here that are really effective. And I also love that whole notion of the band begins to play, because you can get those nautical associations with "and the band played on" from Titanic, but also listen to the band. One of the really interesting and sophisticated Monkeys songs that not enough people really like. Although that said, there is a freak out version of that you can watch, which is probably about 20 minutes long, and it just gets so random. And has all the hallmarks of psychedelia that most people look at and go, it was rubbish. Because seriously, I mean, it's worth having a look at it, because the song effectively stops and descends into a just lengthy piece of chaos and randomness and weirdness, to the point where it just needed someone to shout cut, which is where at this point in their life the Beatles were spot on, because they knew where to cut that verse, introduce another element, and then what do? Back into the chorus, please. Thank you very much.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of those, yeah. It's just going to sort of really repeat what you said, but yeah, it's one of those glorious little moments that I think it is very, very easy to miss. But I think the sophistication of this song is also why it kind of resonates out with the idea of it simply being like a song for kids. And I was originally planning to do a lot of talking about psychedelia with this song. I think I mentioned it in the episode we did on I'm Only Sleeping. And I think there is a real notion about this being a psychedelic song, and a song which has been adopted by many different kind of protest movements and stuff. I think some of the sophistication of what this song is lends itself to that. But honestly, I'm not going to go into too deep a dive in that at this stage. There'll be plenty of other opportunities to talk about kind of psychedelic music and the development of psychedelia as an aesthetic movement, sort of going through this album. What I will just kind of briefly touch on is that I think there is a real distinction between British and American psychedelia. And I think one of the things that distinguishes British psychedelia from American is that kind of real sense of longing and loss for time and for childhood and for moments past. Aesthetically, we have that implicit in Sergeant Pepper. We have the Edwardian uniforms looking back to the past, the brass bands, which are already something which really kind of belong to history, even in the 60s. And a lot of the kind of the influences of psychedelia, things like Lewis Carroll, for example, and songs of White Rabbit, it's about that call back to childhood and that unknowable world that lies ahead of you, which is adulthood, and the way that that the safety and security of being a child becomes kind of tied up with those forms of lyrical expressions. And I think Yellow Submarine does play into that. How much that is intentional, I think, is very open to question. But there is a real discussion to have there. But I'm going to hold off a little bit on it. We'll come back to this.
Okay. Sorry, when you start talking about psychedelia, I kind of switch off a bit, because
no, that's fine.
I just think it's a bit of bullshit. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's one of those things that is spoken about at the time as though it was this massive movement, but we know that it came and it went, in this country in particular, very, very quickly.
Yes, it has very, very little kind of like historical depth to it.
And I think when we were talking in the last episode about the sequencing and all of those sorts of things, I was very much pushing the line that things like She Said, are really good rock tracks. And I was sort of sitting there listening to you talking about you described it as a psychedelic freak out, and I was just sitting there thinking, I don't agree. Shut up. Don't say anything.
It's all right. You're allowed to disagree with me, Andrew. That's the point of us having a discussion.
Anyway, there you go. Right, where did we get to with A Yellow Submarine?
Well, do you want to talk about Spike Milligan?
No, not particularly, but you can.
No, not particularly. But we do kind of have to touch at least upon the whole Goons thing and the influence there, and George Martin's history with comedy records and all the rest of it. But if that's us done it, then I'm also fine with that as well.
Yeah, because I was intrigued by the fact that that MacDonald mentions that the repetition of Ringo's lines, Goon style, throughout the final verse. And I was trying to think, I've listened to a lot of Goons episodes, and that wouldn't be the thing that immediately struck me, unless it was the fact that I mean, you could argue that it sort of sounds a bit like the character of Colonel Bloodnock, in that in the voice that he's put that is being put on. But that's the closest association that I would get from that. But because I don't think I think the only thing in this that is particularly bizarre about it is one, the notion that there is a land of submarines. So we've got that nice kind of oxymoronic phrase there. And then the idea of it being a yellow submarine, which I think is quite interesting and actually has lived on in some aspects of culture. There's a dear listener, I know quite a few of you are in America, so you might not be aware that in Spain there's a place called Villarreal. It's not a massive city, but it has a very successful football club, and the fans are referred to as the Yellow Submarine. They play in yellow, they all dress up in yellow, and they have a fantastic time. So they're referred to as the end of the Yellow Submarine. So that's kind of lived on in culture in some ways. But I also think that this is an example of one of those things where you can ascribe meaning to this depending upon your own position. So people might have mentioned the Goons. I don't really see it massively. Edward Lear gets mentioned because of the owl and the pussycat. I don't really see that. Operation Bloody Petticoat, the Cary Grant film, where he in fact ends up in a pink submarine,
Yeah.
gets mentioned because we've got a colour and submarine, and I don't really get it. But if that's what it means to some people, that's fine. I'm not gonna try and persuade you that your own personal view on it is incorrect if that's what you bring to it. I just think it's joyous and it's fun, but it would also have been for many years a song I would have skipped on the album.
Is that because you would perceive it as a kid's song, do you think?
Possibly, possibly. Maybe just because I want to get to She Said a bit quicker.
Well, that's
Um,
understandable.
maybe because it's sequencing straight after Here, There, and Everywhere feels like it's a little bit too lightweight. But I mean, I don't anymore. But instead, when I listen to it and I listen to it all the way through, I just get those feelings of slight unease that we've left ourselves with a 2.5 minute pop song when I've got no damn resolution about why this man's no longer living in the land of submarines.
Well, yeah, that's an unfinished narrative. That's always frustrating. I don't know. Again, this is another one that I know pretty much. I know that I was always aware of this song, but actually coming to it is something again I did with our dear friend, a collection of Beatles oldies. I know for a fact that that would be the first time I actually listened to it as a proper kind of Beatles recording rather than, school kids playing it badly on descant recorders or something. It would have been the first time I'd sort of probably ever heard it that way. And so again, it's completely out of context. So it took me a long, depressingly long time to get used to hearing it the way it was meant to be heard, which is to say, on the album, sequenced in between Here, There, and Everywhere, and She Said. And once it clicked, I loved it where it was, but it took me a long time to get used to it just being, oh, right, this is where the song belongs. And that's always the difficulty when you come to these songs from odd little compilations like that.
Without wishing to do the radio DJ thing, I know you did want to talk about the majesty of Mr. George Martin in relation to this song.
Well, yeah, because he's just great. I mean, he's just the most wonderful producer in the world, and that's not exactly a revelation, but it's so nice to be able to see him do stuff which isn't just, oh, right, well, we know he can orchestrate stuff incredibly well, but I think what this kind of production shows is that his aptitude goes far, far beyond the confines of being able to, drag a harpsichord into the middle of a recording or, scoring a particularly beautiful cello piece. And it's not to underestimate the fact that he can do that because he's obviously about as good as you could possibly hope any producer to be able to do that sort of stuff. But particularly because he has a slightly stentorian way of speaking and a slightly, fatherly sort of delivery. When you hear him interviewed or you see him talking, and especially the way he refers to the Beatles as the boys and all this kind of stuff, he comes across as a very paternal, slightly serious figure. And then you have this, which doesn't quite manage to fit with that image, and yet he's the one that's dragged it all together. He's the one that can take somebody clanking chains in a bath and not make it just sound like a staticky piece of crap in the background. He's the one that makes all these distinctive sound effects work and work in harmony with each other, and that does come from his experience of producing comedy records, not least of which Bernard Cribbins, but also some of the stuff that he did with the Goons. And it's just amazing that he can just really turn his hand to anything. But I love how effective the production is this, and yet it is not in any way something that I think draws attention to itself. It simply is, and that's just amazing.
Just as related to that, that George Martin was responsible for not only recording but apparently also conceiving and instigating the comedy classic with former goon Peter Sellers, Goodness Gracious Me, in
Well,
which
nobody's perfect.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, he has experience, and that's exactly why MacDonald lists some of the noise making implements, things like chains, whistles, hooters, hoses, handbells, and an old tin bath.
Hey,
Absolutely, yeah. So that's that's quite a cleverly constructed list by MacDonald there. I like how he
yeah.
did that, but it's that kind of thing, and I think you do wonder that if the Beatles had fallen into the hands of a more serious producer, yeah, I know he was a serious human being, but a someone with an understanding about how to create different kinds of effects through music, just how different their their recording career would have been. We probably would have never reached the stage where they would have been able to been so openly joyous in their writing. Yeah, they thought that Rubber Soul was a comedy album in some ways. Ho ho ho! After all, the title is a pun on our play on words on Plastic Soul, which they were accused of. Man, and we've got an album here that's called Revolver because it goes round and round and round. Ho ho ho! But this is joyous. Drive My Car isn't joyous. This is joyous. And so it's all the better for it. But not only that, Yellow Submarine is it's not just a good song for Ringo, it's a really good vocal as
Hmm.
well. He pulls out all the things he needs to from this. As a result, it's really effective. I think it's helped by the cast of noisemakers who come in as well. I was tempted to suggest that maybe it's the last decent thing that Brian Jones ever contributed to pop music, but having had a quick look through some of the Stones recordings in '67 and '68, he does still appear to be contributing quite significantly to those albums. So I'm not going to make any reference to that whatsoever. But also in terms of inspiration, what can you say about a song that inspired a film?
Well, it's kind of odd that it is the song that's sort of done that. I mean, it's grown legs out with the sort of context of the album. And yeah, I mean, it's inspired a film. It's inspired, it's been picked up by political movements. It's been reinterpreted in so many different ways. And of all the songs in the albums to have done that, I know there are now like dozens of films which use Beatles titles as, their the movie title or whatever. I mean, obviously not least of which Yesterday, but I mean, like dozens of other ones which are just like cheesy love stories which are called P.S. I Love You or some bloody thing. I don't know. So,
I'm going to come back to one of those in a few minutes. So hold on to your hats.
I shall bait my breath appropriately. But this, like genuinely inspired a movie, and I don't want to use the P word again because I don't want to upset you, but you know, a movie which a lot of people will refer to as psychedelic, and you know, there has to be a reason for that. But I just also want to touch on what you just said, which is yeah, it's a great vocal from Ringo. It really is. So I just want to add my heartfelt agreement with you there.
So I think that this of all the films, of all the songs, um, I think this is the one that has the most color, but also the blankest canvas because we've got that shift in subject matter, which I think is important. We're not talking about a relationship, we're talking about a place. We're talking about something created through imagination, but we're only given so many details about it. And because we don't have Walton coming back at the end to say what happened to Frankenstein and the creature, actually it works that way because then you can take it in whatever direction you want from there. You can then layer a story on top of this amazing place. And so I think it's logically one that is going to get taken up. So I can really see why that would be the case. And um, I mean, whatever one may feel about Yellow Submarine, and one does feel about Yellow Submarine, whatever one does feel about it, I can see why it would have been taken and used in that way. Now,
Okay.
uh, so there are lots of films that have taken their titles from from songs. There are lots of them, and lots of them have no real link. It's just a nice title. So yes, P.S. I love you. There's some letters in it. Um, there's a John Candy film called Only the Lonely. Okay,
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
there's you can see there's some sort of link about he is a person who's getting a bit older and he is a bit lonely. Um, but before I get on to my favorite one that uses a Beatles title, I do want to give you one that I think is just the epitome of this genre. And that's a fairly recent Christmas film that's called Last Christmas, which was co-written by the great Dame legend Sir Damehood, Emma Thompson. Now, I don't know if you're aware, JG, of this film, but I want to focus in on a particular part of the lyric of Wham's amazing song, which I didn't appreciate at the time. I was too young, I think. Um, Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, because the lead female character falls in love with the lead male character, but then doesn't really realize it, goes back to find him at a later stage, and it turns out he's not alive. It turns out that he is the person, the reason that she is alive, because last Christmas I gave you my heart. He died, and his heart was transplanted into her to save her life.
Oh fuck! All the way off.
Oh my word. That is just it's just
Oh my
genius. It
god.
is just
Co-written
genius.
by Emma
I love
Thompson.
it. Oh man, it's I mean there are good people associated with that film. I think it's a Paul Feig film actually.
Oh right.
It's just like, what is going on?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's amazing. Incredible. Yeah.
Are you aware of the 1997 film 8 Days a Week? It's a
I'm
comedy
aware
film.
that it exists. I wouldn't go any further than that.
So it's got a very young Kerry Russell. I really like Kerry Russell. She's a really, really good actress. There's lots of, you know, the Americans, for example. She
Yeah. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in that. Really, really good. Um, I'm going to read you the plot. Peter is infatuated with his childhood friend and next door neighbor, Erica, brackets Kerry Russell. Based on advice from his grandfather, Peter decides to camp on Erica's lawn until she realizes that she loves him. During his long summer wait, he frequently comments on their neighborhood. So, in other words, it's like he's there 8 days a week. Now, I've not seen this film, but I have seen the trailer, and it is every bit as wrong as that plot summary sounds.
That's a oh, what was the grandfather's motivation for saying go sleep on somebody's lawn all summer? That's the thing I want answered.
Probably the parents are away. I've got to look after him, so it's much better to get him out of the house and doing something. And so I can just sit in my attic room and do what grandfathers do.
Drink whiskey and watch westerns?
Yeah, that'll be it. Yeah, whiskey. Yeah, whiskey. Yeah, definitely. That's the W word you were after.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Just, I mean, and of course the trailer is, she's got a boyfriend who's like a big kind of hunky sports guy, and confrontation. It's like, oh, I really like you. I'm going to stay here until you fall in love with me. And do you know what? It kind of looks from the trailer as though she might actually do that. Whoa! It is. Yeah. So anyway, it has an approval rating of 20% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Lovely,
and
lovely.
probably the same on Rotten Tomatoes as well. But I didn't get those statistics. But just fabulous. I like the fact that the producers and the writers clearly thought, well, he's going to be persistent. He's going to be there for a long time. Let's think of a title. Love it.
Just it writes itself. It writes itself. All right, we've gone a bit off topic here.
Oh, okay. Bring us back.
No, that was it. That was my attempt to drag us back into what we were supposed to be talking about. I was going to say I think Emma Thompson should be the next Doctor Who, but let's not go there either.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see
should
that.
be good.
Yeah.
Should be good. Right, what are we talking about?
Yellow Submarine.
Oh, that's
Yellow
the one.
Submarine.
Good. It's awfully good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a nice summary.
Good. Well, that was. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I'm kind of.
No.
I don't.
No,
All right.
I think we've covered most of the well, no, some of the salient points. We've probably missed half a dozen of the salient points.
I'm sure we have.
But I am okay with that.
Fine.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting, though. What I'm really genuinely curious what score you're going to give it, because yeah.
Yeah, I'm making funny noises because I don't know.
Good.
I think before we started the conversation, I probably would have said 7. But
Yeah.
having spoken about it in the way that we have, I think I'm going to say shamelessly, let's give it an 8, man. Let's give it an 8.
An 8. That's precisely what I'm going to give it as well. So excellent. Good. That's really interesting. I'm not sure what I was expecting going into this discussion, but it's made me very happy. So I'm really glad
I think sometimes you just need to recognize the fact that it's a slice of pop loveliness, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes those poppy songs are great. Just like, for example, okay, so I've just been talking about the film Last Christmas. I genuinely didn't really like Last Christmas when it came out as a song. And I can't remember why. I think it was because I did quite like the first Wham album, because as an 11, 12-year-old, it felt a little bit kind of, gritty. And, they some of those songs had similar things to some things that this can sound really weird. The Specials were talking about in a couple of places. So it seemed like there was something significant going on there. And then suddenly we got Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. And I was like, no, I'm out. Sorry, bye. But actually, Last Christmas is a flipping good song. Just like sometimes you have to say that, like, I don't know, Back for Good is a really good song. Britney Spears' Toxic is a really good song. And you kind of put your snobbery to one side and go, pop music's brilliant at times, isn't it?
Yes, I mean pop music is brilliant at times. I don't like Last Christmas, but yes, I agree. And if any song would ask you to put aside those kind of thoughts and just simply embrace it for its pure joy, then surely Yellow Submarine has to be top of the list.
Yep. Wrap it up, JG. Wrap it up.
Okay, I'm going to rap. Although I'm also, to be clear, I'm really not going to rap.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
No. Excellent. You can really, oh God, you can really, you can't rap in a Scottish accent. It's not good. You can really get a hold of us. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. Please let us know if you'd like me to do a rap. And we are also Beatles Stuffology on Instagram. And you can find my blog at www.jgmcquarrie.scot. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you are using so that more people can find the show. Next episode, we bring side 1 to a close with She Said, She Said. And, of course, we hope you're going to join us for it. But until then, keep listening.